Welcome to the DealerVu Education Series. This lesson is Pivot Tables 101, an introduction to pivot tables. This lesson will have two parts. Part 1 is a demonstration of how you might use pivot tables with DealerVu. Part 2 is a review of the steps to create a pivot table. Let's begin the demonstration. Alright, well let's take a look at an example of how pivot tables can be used with the DealerVu system. Let's say that I am a accounting person and I want to look at a transaction journal, and since this is a demo system, I'm going to look at the entire year, and so I refresh the data here, and then what I do is I select File, Export, and this is going to create the file that I'm going to work in with the pivot table. So I'm going to name it DV, and I'm going to overwrite an existing file in this particular case. Click File, Save. Yes, I do. Export's completed. So now we're ready to start working on that pivot table. So we go over to the Excel file and open it up, and you'll notice that you basically have data here. And one of the key things to know about a pivot table is whatever your column headers are, those are going to be your selection criteria. It's also important to note that if you have a blank field like cell A1, you have to put something in there, otherwise you'll get an error message. So I'm just going to call it tag. And then you want to select your range of data, and you can do it one of two ways. You can either select everything on the page by clicking in this upper left hand corner, and that highlights everything, or you can highlight the range of data. You can do it any way you like. I just happen to start from the bottom on this one. Then what you do is you come up to data, and in this version, because we're in Office Excel 2003, it'll be under data. If you were in something later than 2003, it would be under edit. So let's come here and we're going to say pivot table, and then we're going to say finish. And then here's your things that you can play with right here on the right. And you notice over here you have, it says drop row fields here, drop data columns here, drop data here. And then you have page area up here. So let's just say that I want to look at, maybe start out with account number, and I want to see just debits and credits flowing out of them. So I'll drag debits over and drag credits over. And then I could look at it this way, but I like to look at it side by side, so I'm going to left click on that and drag it over to the total, and now it puts them side by side. I also look and say, well, those are dollars, so I prefer to have them formatted for dollars. So if I right click on one of the numbers and go down to field settings, I then have the option to select different types of ways of looking at the numbers, and sum is what I want. And I could look and say, I want this to be currency. So I click OK, and now we're looking at currency. Do the same thing on the other column. So we do field settings, sum, number, currency, we're good to go. Okay, and now we're looking at an analysis of accounts with debits and credits. And you may say, well, what I really want to do is look at that by vendor and customer. So I'll drag that over and drop that right there. And now I'm looking at a customer and seeing the data. And I can also say, well, hey, what if I want to highlight this so I can see the breaks more cleanly? If you move your cursor to where you see a little black arrow like that and the left click, it'll highlight all your summaries. You can click on yellow or blue or whatever color you like, and it will fill those in. And it's really that simple. We're pretty much done. If you wanted, you could also add account description. And I think the totals here are a little bit unnecessary, so I'm going to highlight those and right click and say hide. And so now I'm looking at the data this way. Let's review what we just saw in our demonstration, creating a pivot table in 6 easy steps. Step 1, generate the data you want to analyze. You can use any structured data. All columns must have headers. The typical sources would be DealerVu, Salesforce, DocuSign. You may use a network map, a territory listing, phone list, contact records, any type of structured data. Step 2, open the data in Excel. Typically, I save them to the desktop, which makes it easy to find. Click Open. Step 3, Highlight the range of data to use. You can select all or just the area you want. Step 4. Select Pivot Table. In Office 2003, this will be under the Data tab. In versions of Office after 2003, it will be under the Insert tab. Step 5. Select what you want to analyze. Left-click and drag the fields and drop them on the area that you want to review them from. That would be page, row, column, and data areas. Step 6. Make it pretty. You can add the settings that you want, be it sum, average, and then the type of value you want it to be. Typically, currency is a common one. Then highlight, you hover the cursor over the leftmost boundary of the area you want to highlight, and you'll get a little black arrow. Left click, and that will highlight it. Then select the color you want. Voila, you have a pivot table. It's that easy. That should get you started in the world of pivot tables. They are fun and an incredibly powerful analytical tool. Thank you for watching Pivot Tables 101.